Gaming. For decades, it's been a cultural cornerstone, an escape, and a source of creativity for millions. From the simplicity of Pac-Man to the sprawling worlds of Elden Ring, gaming has captured our imaginations and transformed how we experience storytelling and entertainment. But in recent years, a question has been creeping into conversations among gamers, developers, and critics alike. Is gaming dying? Today we're diving deep into this question. We'll explore the highs and lows of the industry, the evolving culture of gamers, the role of monetization, and whether this beloved medium is truly in decline or simply undergoing a transformation. To answer whether gaming is dying, we first need to look back at what many consider the golden age of gaming. The late 80s through to the early 2000s was a time of innovation and experimentation. Arcades were packed with games chasing high scores. Home consoles like the NES, SNES, N64, Sega Genesis, and PlayStation revolutionized entertainment, turning gaming into a household staple. These were the years when every new release felt groundbreaking. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time transported players into a vast living world, while Final Fantasy VII showed us that video games could tell us stories as powerful as those in books or movies. Meanwhile, multiplayer games like Halo and Counter-Strike, Call of Duty brought friends together in ways that no other medium could. This was gaming in its purest form, free from the corporate greed and over-commercialization that we often associate with today's industry. It was about the joy of playing, the thrill of discovery, and the sense of community. But as gaming grew, so did its profitability. The mid-2000s saw the rise of the downloadable content, or DLC, which gave developers a way to extend their games with new features, missions, or items. At first, it was a win-win. Players got more content, and companies earned extra revenue. But over time, the line between content creation and corporate greed began to blur. Enter microtransactions, loot boxes, season passes. Suddenly, games weren't just about playing, they became about spending. Games like FIFA and Call of Duty introduced mechanics designed to keep players hooked and their wallets open. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with companies making money, these practices started to feel exploitative. Players were paying full price for a game only to find the key features were locked behind paywalls. For many, this marked the beginning of gaming's decline. A shift from art to business, where the player felt more like a customer than a community member. Let's not forget the role of gaming community itself. In the early days, gamers were united by their love of the medium. Whether you were a console kid or a PC diehard, the joy of gaming transcended hardware wars. Fast forward to today, and the gaming community is more divided than ever. Console wars, toxic online behavior, and fan entitlement have created an environment where negativity often overshadows the love of gaming. Social media, streaming platforms have amplified these issues. While platforms like Twitch and YouTube have given creators new opportunities, they've also put a spotlight on the worst aspects of gaming culture. Harassment, hate raids, doxing have been made gaming spaces feel unsafe for many, especially marginalized groups. But it's not all bad. There are still countless communities where gamers support each other, share tips, and celebrate the games they love. The question is where these positive spaces can outshine the negativity, and that has come to define much of gaming culture. Another major concern among gamers is the perceived decline in the quality of modern games. Remember when a game launched and it just worked? Nowadays, it feels like every major release is riddled with bugs, glitches, or performance issues. Games like Cyberpunk 2077 and Battlefield 2042 promise groundbreaking experiences only to fall short on release. Players are tired of paying for unfinished products and being told, wait for the patch. On top of this, some argue that creativity is being stifled by the industry's obsession with sequels, remakes, and safe investments. Games that push the boundaries of storytelling or gameplay, we get dozens of uninspired entries in long-running franchises. But it's not all doom and gloom. Indie games have become a beacon of hope for many players. Titles like Stardew Valley, Hollow Knight, Celeste remind us that there's still some room for passion projects in a market dominated by AAA behemoths. So how's the gaming industry responding to these criticisms? The answer is mixed. On one hand, companies are starting to listen. Games like No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk 2077 were heavily criticised at launch, but have since undergone major updates that have won a few of the players back. On the other hand, many developers seem to be stuck in the cycle of over-promising, under-delivering. Marketing hype creates unrealistic expectations, and when those expectations aren't met, the backlash is swift and unforgiving. There's also a rise of live service games, which are designed to be played and paid for indefinitely. While some players love the constant stream of updates, others feel these games lack the depth, creativity of the traditional titles. Ultimately, the industry is at crossroads. Developers can either double down on profit-driven practices or refocus on creating meaningful experiences for players. Despite the challenges, there's plenty of reason to be optimistic about gaming's future. Technology continues to evolve at a credible pace. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and cloud gaming are opening up possibilities we couldn't have imagined a decade ago. We're also seeing a shift toward more inclusive storytelling. Games like The Last of Us 1 and 2, Life is Strange, and Celeste are exploring themes of identity, mental health, and the human connection is always that resonates with a wider audience. Let's not forget that the players themselves, as gaming becomes more mainstream, the community is becoming more diverse. This means more perspectives, more ideas, and more opportunities for Medium to grow. The question isn't whether gaming is dying, it's whether we as players and developers are willing to embrace change and demand better from the industry. While gaming continues to be a massive industry with millions of players worldwide, there are valid reasons why many feel like the medium is losing its spark. One of the biggest issues is the sheer oversaturation of the gaming market. With thousands of games being released every year, it's becoming harder for players to separate quality experiences from uninspired cash grabs. The mobile gaming sector, for instance, is flooded with low-effort games that focus on extracting as much money as possible through microtransactions. Even on consoles and PC, there are countless games that feel like carbon copies of one another. Battle royales, hero shooters, survival games dominating the landscape, leaving little room for fresh ideas. This oversaturation dilutes the market, making it harder for standout titles to shine and discouraging players from taking risks on new games. When every other game feels like a clone, something you've already played, it's easy to feel that gaming is losing its creativity. We've touched on monetization before, but it's worth diving deeper into just how damaging these practices have been to the industry. Loot boxes, pay-to-win mechanics, and excessive season passes have created a culture where financial aspect of game has overshadowed the experience itself. Let's look at a mobile game title like Clash of Clans, which rakes in billions of dollars through microtransactions. But at what cost? These games are designed to manipulate players psychologically, encouraging them to spend money to overcome artificial barriers or gain a competitive advantage. Even in the AAA space, games like FIFA and NBA 2K prioritize monetization over gameplay. Players often find themselves paying extra for features that should have been included in the base game, such as alternate characters, skins, or even fully functional game modes. This constant push for monetization creates an atmosphere of distrust between developers and players. Instead of feeling like a valued participant in creating an experience, gamers often feel like walking wallets. Another argument is that the single-player games, the backbone of gaming's golden era, are becoming an endangered species. While there are still exceptional single-player titles like The Witcher 3, Elden Ring, God of War, the industry's focus has shifted heavily toward live service games and multiplayer experiences. Why? Because single-player games usually have a one-time purchase model, whereas live service games can generate revenue indefinitely through in-game purchases and subscriptions. This shift in focus has left many fans of traditional gaming feeling alienated. They miss the days when developers poured their energy into crafting unforgettable solo experiences rather than trying to build ecosystems designed to keep the players engaged for years at a time. Sure, single-player games aren't dead, but their reduced presence in the industry signals a change that many see a step in the wrong direction. The gaming industry has also been leaning heavily on nostalgia in recent years. And while that's not inherently bad, it's starting to feel like a crutch. Remakes, remasters, and reboots dominate release schedules, often at the expense of original ideas. For every Resident Evil 2, 3, 4 remake, a stellar example of how to revisit a classic, there are countless half-hearted attempts that feel like cash grabs. Nostalgia is a powerful marketing tool, but when it's overused, it's risked turning gaming into a rehashing of the past rather than the exploration of new possibilities. Players are left wondering, is the industry so devoid of creativity that it can only recycle what it's already been done? The gaming community has always had its rough edges, but in recent years, the toxicity has become impossible to ignore. Online harassment, gatekeeping, elitism have made many gaming spaces feel unwelcome, especially for newcomers and marginalised groups. Take competitive gaming, for instance. Titles like League of Legends, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2 are notorious for toxic player bases. Trash talk is one thing, but targeted harassment, hate speech, and even doxing are rampant in online gaming. This toxicity extends beyond the games itself. Developers and streamers often face intense scrutiny and harassment, especially when they make creative decisions that don't align with fan expectations. The backlash against The Last of Us Part 2, for example, went beyond criticism and escalated to death threats against its creators. For many, the toxic culture surrounding gaming is enough to drive them away from the hobby altogether. The problems within the gaming aren't limited to players. Behind the scenes, developers are often pushed to their limits to meet unrealistic deadlines. This phenomenon, known as crunch culture, has been a blight on the industry for years. Major studios like Rockstar, CD Projekt Red, Naughty Dog have faced scrutiny for subjecting their employees to grueling work hours to ship games on time. And yet, even with all this extra effort, many games still launch unfinished, riddled with bugs and missing features. The toll on developers is enormous. Burnout, mental health struggles, the high turnover rates are all too common. It's a vicious cycle. Overworked developers create rushed games, leading to backlash from players, which in turn increases pressure on the developers. This unsustainable approach to game development raises serious questions about the future of the industry. Despite gaming's growing popularity, it still struggles with accessibility. For one, the cost of entry has never been higher. Consoles like PS5, Xbox Series X, mid to high end gaming PCs can cost thousands of dollars. Add to that the rising price of games, subscriptions, and in-game purchases, and the gaming start to feel more like a luxury than a hobby. Then there's the issue of hardware scarcity. Supply chain issues have made it nearly impossible for many players to get their hands on the latest consoles. Scalpers only make matters worse, buying up stock and reselling at exorbitant prices. For many, these barriers to try and make gaming feel increasingly out of reach, especially when compared to other forms of entertainment like streaming movies or listening to music. All of these factors, oversaturation, predatory monetization, declining creativity, toxicity, crunch culture, accessibility issues, paint a grim picture of where gaming is headed. For many, these issues make it feel like gaming is dying, or at the least losing magic that once made it so special. So is gaming dying? No, but it's changing, as we all know. And like any form of art, those changes come with growing pains. Yes, there are challenges, corporate greed, toxicity, but there are incredible opportunities to push the medium forward. Gaming isn't dying, it's evolving, and as long as people who love to play, create, explore, and future of gaming will always be bright. Thank you for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Is gaming dying, or is it just entering its next chapter? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out any more videos I do. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.